Hi, it's me, Shannon, and I'm here to share a story with you about how I got into the entertainment industry and why I got out. So, young as I could remember, actually, from the age of maybe 5 on up, I was always interested in entertaining people. I mean, I was constantly standing in front of the television, in front of my grandparents, trying to get their attention away from the television and on me. And it was something where anytime my grandpa had a video camera around, I was always like right there, like, I want to be on the video camera and I want to be, taking the pictures and all that stuff. And at an early age, I remember watching these shows on television with my grandparents and saying, I want to be on television. I want to do that. I want to act. And I would take like the characters and the shows that I was watching with my grandparents, and I would go to my neighbor's house and I would act these out. I would act these parts out. I would write down the script, and I'd be like, okay, so we're gonna be playing this today, and we're gonna be doing that, and I would direct this little pretend film that I was making as a child, and I would develop these characters, and I had so much fun doing that. It was like one of my favorite pastimes. So I would do that, and then I remember my grandpa got a little, like, an old tape recorder, and then I was like, I want to be a newscaster, and let me do the weather. And then I'd be like, got together with my older friends, and we sat there and we recorded this, and I'm like, and now we're going to have the weather. And I was like 7 years old, and I'm like, today in the forecast is rain. Drip, drip, drip. And my friends were just laughing at me because here I was, this little 5-year-old, and I had all these ideas of how I wanted to entertain and how I wanted to do things. And also, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was in the Christmas catalog, and I found a guitar, and I said, hey, I want to play the guitar. So I asked for a guitar for Christmas, and I got the guitar. I took it in my room, and I sat there and I taught myself a song by just reading this book and doing what the book said. And so I was kind of self-taught with that. And my grandma was like shocked that I just took the book, and next thing you know, I was playing a song about 20 minutes later. So then she was like, oh, hey, like, maybe we should put her in guitar lessons. So then I started going to take guitar lessons. And so I had like all this stuff going on. Like I said, when I was a young child, I remember from the age that I could remember, at 5 years old, I was in recitals doing tap dancing and ballet, and I had taken tumbling when I was little. Like, that was like the first class I took when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And I looked back and I saw all these, booklets of all these recitals. And like, I was always wanting to be on stage, always wanting to perform, always wanting to, do something in the entertainment industry. And I remember being really little and watching television and saying, I want to be on TV. I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And, I remember my little ambition, when kids get an ambition together. I remember when I was 11 years old, I was going to be in my very first pageant, which I had seen these Miss America and Miss USA on television, and I was like, I want to be in one of those pageants. And I saw my cousin was in a pageant, and I kept bugging my grandparents to let me get into a pageant. And when I finally was able to get into a pageant when I was 11, I played the guitar for the talent competition, and I had really bad stage fright, and I pretty much forgot where I was playing the guitar, and I just lost my place, and I felt like it was a huge embarrassment. I got stage fright, and but I ended up winning the speech contest, though. I ended up doing a public speaking, a speech on my favorite American at the time, and I won that competition. And we didn't have any, we didn't have a lot of, like today they have a lot of different optionals to where you could do different types of talent and stuff. And I didn't really know that acting or monologues could be part of the talent. But that became something I was increasingly interested in. And at that first pageant that I went to, the judges were there, and they had a couple of like celebrity judges, and they had a like a talent agent there as well. And so through that, I remember also one of the girls that was in the pageant, you know, she had gotten an agent, and she was already working as, you know, as an actress. She had been in some commercials and stuff. And so I thought, wow, this might be my way in to, you know, being an actress. And so I remember at like 11 years old, we had to do a personal introduction at the pageant. And, you know, I remember going out there saying, you know, hi, my name is Shannon, and, you know, I'm 12 years old, and my ambition in life is to become a famous guitarist, singer, and actress. And like that was like my goal for the next, you know, I remember like starting at 11 years old when I was in that first pageant. You know, my goal was to become a famous guitarist, singer, and actress. And that was like my goal for the rest of my teenage years. And I entered into a few other pageants along the way. And my first introduction to the industry actually was when I entered into a different pageant system, and they knew of an agent, and they knew of a photographer. And so I got my first set of headshots and stuff like that. But now that I look back at it, that photographer that I worked with was, and this is another reason why I say, you know, to be careful when you're trying to get into this industry, because there are a lot of people that don't have your best interests at heart, and they are just out there to make money, and some are out there for other reasons as well. And so some of the photos that he photographed me in were like not in the best of taste. And, you know, he had me as like, you know, a 12-year-old, you know, doing these poses that maybe a 25-year-old should be doing. And, you know, to be honest, it was like all the wrong types of photos that I wasn't trying to get into being in adult roles. I was supposed to be a child. I was a child. I was 12. So, and the reason why I remember is because I remember seeing these photos of myself, like sitting in these kind of provocative positions, and I'm smiling in one of them, and like my 2 teeth are missing. So I'm like, why is a child sitting in that position with 2 missing teeth? Like that's not right, you know? And at the time, I mean, I was completely unaware. I didn't really know what boundaries were. I mean, I was just doing what the photographer told me to do. He said, stand like this or turn like that, and I did. And, you know, my grandfather was not really familiar with the industry as well, and he was just, you know, kind of like, okay, whatever, you know, just do what you gotta do type of thing, you know? And time went on, and the first agent that I got was not really sending me to many auditions or anything like that. He was kind of like, you know, sending me to these auditions that were not really like professional. They weren't really going to be like, you know, something like industry standard. And so shortly after that, I remember I got into another pageant system, and in that pageant system, I met the pageant director who like had a lot of ties into the entertainment industry, and he had a lot of more, you know, people that he knew that could help me steer me along in that path. And through him, I was able to get another set of photos done. And at that time, the big thing was having composites, where you had like 4 or 5, maybe, you know, different pictures depicting different styles that you would be in, and it was more for like commercial type work, not so much theatrical. And I remember at that time he also had a connection to a famous celebrity that was on a hit television show, and he had worked it out with that person to since he became my manager, and some of the other girls that were involved in this pageant had him as an actual talent manager. He put together some acting classes with this famous celebrity, and we basically started to have these classes on a weekly basis. And this was when I was around the age of 13. And through that, I was actually able to get a better set of pictures, and I was also submitted to some more established agencies that had more, that were actually dealing with national commercials, not just, cable type stuff, like that the other one was doing. And the professional photos that I got from that was much more, professional and at the level of what, what actors and actresses were doing at the time. And now the one thing that I didn't like about that at the time is that they kept telling me that they wanted to, for older people to play younger parts. And as a teenager, when you're like 13, 14, you can't think of like, you want to always be older. You don't want to look like a kid. And so I remember showing up to that photo shoot, and I had my makeup on and my hair done the way I would do it as I would go to school. And the photographer was like, no, take all the makeup off, and we're putting your hair in ponytails. And I was just like, ponytails? Like, I'm 13. And they're like, well, we want you to play an 11-year-old. We don't want you to play a 13-year-old. And I'm like, it didn't really make sense to me. And for a 13-year-old that had strong will, it frustrated me because I didn't like how I looked without makeup, and I didn't like that I had to wear pigtails and braids, and like that wasn't my thing. I wanted to look like, Alyssa Milano on, on Who's the Boss. Like, I wanted to look like all the young stars that I admired that were playing teenager roles. Well, little did I know they were like 19, 20 playing 16-year-olds. And so I'm 13 and they're wanting me to play an 11-year-old. So they're trying to get me to play these younger roles and look like a younger kid. And that's not really what I wanted, because I really didn't have enough self-confidence. I didn't even like how I looked without makeup when I was 13. So that was like one of the things that was just hard for me to do as a teenager. But of course I went ahead and did it, and I got some actual decent pictures out of it, and was able to submit them to several agencies, and I did get picked up by one of the agents. And I started going out on like auditions for national television commercials, like Honey Bunches of Oats and stuff like that. So that was like my starting gate, right? Now, at that same time frame, I was also like living this whole different life at home, and I had started hanging out with some gang members, and I started to develop some like slang that was like, from the neighborhood. And I actually started getting like a Mexican accent because I was hanging around with like a lot of Hispanic people. And my agent actually told me that my agent and my manager was just like, you need to start hanging out with white people. You need to start hanging out with white people that talk like this and act like this. And you need to stop hanging out with people that have an accent, because you're white and we can't cast you in a part for a white child that speaks like a Mexican, or has an accent like someone other than a white person. And I felt that was kind of like prejudiced and racist. And at my age, at like 12, 13, or 13, 14, 15, around that age frame when I was going through that, I remember feeling like, well, so now you want to change who I am. So I started to get like a little rebellious, because also I wanted to dye my hair a different color, and I had just taken all these photos, and I I was like one of those kids that I was like, I was going to do what I was going to do, and I didn't care what anybody said. And I went out and I got a box of hair dye behind my grandparents' back, and I actually dyed my hair to a dark brown color. And my agent and my manager was so mad because I had been, marketed as a blonde, blue-eyed, white girl, that could play that type of part. And all of a sudden I have dark brown hair and I have a Mexican accent. And they didn't like that. They were just like, we can't cast you. Like, how are we going to cast you? And then they were mad because then they can't make money from, me, getting me work. So then they lose money. And, at the time I was struggling for my own independence. I was struggling to be who I wanted to be and to look how I wanted to look and to be like I wanted to be and to talk how I wanted to talk. And obviously I was going down a wrong path because I was drinking and using drugs at that time as well. So, it was kind of like I was throwing whatever career idea that I had in my mind out the window anyways. But I do understand how people in the industry, you're so stressed because like all you do is work. All you do is, you're either at your acting classes, like I was either acting classes or I was at my guitar lessons or I was doing something to develop my craft. And I like basically was losing all my childhood. Like I didn't have time for friends. I didn't have time to go out and hang out with anybody. And, also my friends were making fun of me that I was involved in these types of things. So it was kind of like, a time where when I'm being put into the limelight, and suddenly my picture's being put in the newspapers and I'm in these parades and I'm hanging around with some of these celebrities. And then all of a sudden, people are making fun of me because I'm not like your average kid that just goes to school. And then, it's like, then next thing you know, I'm having a hard time fitting in at school because I'm, trying to live this life of working when everyone else is just going to school and doing school stuff and hanging out with their friends, and yet I'm like trying to have this actress life. So at that time, I remember I kind of like was getting tired of everything, my world revolving around going to auditions, my world revolving about every single weekend I was going to LA and, and then after doing like a movie and doing a couple things, like I was just like, I want my life back. I want to be a teenager again. I want to go out with my friends. I want to hang out with my friends. Like, I don't know if I really want this as much as I thought I did. And then, I just got caught up in all kinds of crazy stuff as a teenager. Like I said, I started to drink and use drugs, and I very understand much why, kids in the acting industry turn to that stuff as well, because it's like we're trying to numb, the pain of like losing our own childhood, of losing our, our own personal identity, because when we act, we have to become these other characters. We're no longer being ourselves. So then we have like these identity struggles as well. We don't know who we are as an individual because we're playing all these parts of being all these other people, And I remember I did win I was in a acting competition where I did a monologue and I won, an award for that as well. And so, but it was like the awards and all that stuff. It was just another trophy to put on the shelf, it was just another trophy and it was just another, acknowledgement, but it didn't really fulfill me as who I was as a person. I still didn't know who Shannon was. I still didn't know what I wanted. I just knew that in this industry, I was starting to realize that you don't get to control your own creativity. You don't get to do what you want to do. You don't get to be creative. You're told what to do. You're controlled, and they're controlling you down to the color of your hair, to how long your hair is, to what you look like, to how you're presented, to what you're wearing. You can't wear your own, you have to wear the wardrobe they want you to wear. You have to wear the clothes they want you to wear. And then that becomes something where it's like you lose yourself in that. And I think I was losing myself and losing my identity. You know, as a young child, you're barely finding your identity and finding who you are and what you want and the things that you want anyways. So to be all of a sudden told you have to be this way, you have to be that way, you have to act this way, look this way, dress this way, be this way. And like later on when it came to, I remember I kind of got away from it for a while. And then when I was 18, I was like, I was going to try this one last time, you know, because, you know, now I wasn't going to be in school anymore and I would have a lot of more time to dedicate to my craft and to begin acting and doing more auditions. And so I remember going to take another set of headshots, and I ended up, because before I had already lost my other agent because they didn't want anything to do with me because I already changed my hair, dyed my hair, you know, changed my appearance, and wasn't like following their rules and following what they wanted me to do. So they just dropped me like a hot potato. And this new agency, I mean, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do my hair the way I want to do my hair. I'm going to do my, you know, and you saw in the pictures in the beginning, and yes, they were back in the like early 90s, 80s, like turning into 90s where we still had the big hair. So in the thumbnail that you saw of this video, you saw some of the pictures that I had taken when I was 18, and I finally felt like, hey, you know, I'm me, and I can play me now. Like I can be me, and I can look this way, and I don't have to like look like the way they want me to look. And you know, I ended up getting a really good agent, and I ended up going on auditions again. But at that time, my agent, me transitioning to, like, it's such a different world. When you turn 18 in the industry, you're suddenly, like, they realize they can do whatever they want with you, even more so, because you're no longer a juvenile. You're no longer underage. You're no longer jailbait. So now all of a sudden they feel like they are able to exploit you to the fullest extent. And they were asking me to do, like, to wear these provocative type of outfits. And I had literally, at the same time, I had literally just decided to go to church, and I had just decided, you know, after 3 or 4 years of, you know, like, you know, finding out about God and stuff like that, like, I started going to church, and I was devoting my life to serving the Lord. And so I suddenly had all these convictions now to where I didn't want to dress provocatively. I didn't want to be presented as some kind of sex symbol. I didn't want to be presented as, you know, I wanted to be picky and choosy about the roles that I wanted to play. And so, but you can't do that in Hollywood. Like, it's like if you have an agent and the agent tells you, look, we want to book you for this, this, and that, and it's like, you're just supposed to go and do that. And if you don't do that, then it's like you're gonna upset the agent. You're gonna make them mad because you're not doing what they want you to do. And the last straw for me was when they had asked me to audition for this part, and I was going to have to, you know, kiss some guy and actually have to, like, be in bed with him, and it was completely against all my morals. I was still, to be honest with you, I was still a virgin. I was still, you know, like, I had kissed, you know, some people, but I hadn't gone past, you know, I hadn't really experienced much. And I was not willing for my first experiences to be in front of a camera and be on film. And I wasn't willing to, I didn't want to have a part where I would have to kiss, you know, guys that maybe I didn't want to kiss, like strangers, absolute strangers. and then like lay in bed with them and like, you know, and then be partially nude at the same time, and was being asked to do that type of work. And I was like I suddenly wanted to go back to a child where, you know I didn't have to do those things. Like I was like, no, I just want to do like commercials, like fun stuff, you know, and stuff where I don't only have to kiss boys. And I tried to lay down this stuff that I was like, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that, like I'm not gonna kiss guys, I'm not gonna, you know, just kiss random people I don't know, I'm not gonna be in bed with people, I'm not gonna, you know, and then my agent was like, no, 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 so you signed a contract to work with our agency, and I'm getting you these auditions and you have to go to them. And he actually started to threaten my grandfather that he was going to sue. And I got really scared because I was 18, and I thought, well, Matt, can he make me do these things? Because my grandpa and him were both like pretty much acting like, you know, like, you have to do this, you have to go to that audition. And I'm like, no, I don't. And then it's like, they're like, well, you're never going to work in Hollywood if you don't go to this audition. And I'm like, well, then fine, I will never work in Hollywood. I don't care at this point, because I am not going to be told what to do. I'm not going to be told that I have to dress in, you know, have my boobs showing and have my butt showing. Like, I'm sorry, I have some values, and I have, you know, modesty, and I don't want to dress like that, and I don't want to look like that. And they're like, look at Hollywood, you know, that's, everyone dresses like that, everyone does this. And I'm like, well, I'm not everyone, and I don't want to do it. And so they're like, you know what, like, then you're never going to really work in Hollywood, because no agent is going to represent me when I have all these like stipulations of what I will and will not do. So basically, the reason why I got out of Hollywood was because I had high morals and high standards, to where I did not want to let them make me something that I was not, just so that they could make money. And it didn't, to me at the point, like, giving up like that, like my own personal morals and dignity that I had within myself, just for money, it wasn't worth it. So that's why I said, you know what, I'm just going to let it go. I mean, I had made it my goal throughout all those years. But then when I turned to the Lord, and I turned to God, and I was, you know, serving the Lord, all of a sudden, I suddenly felt like I see what Hollywood's really all about. I see that it's all about sex. Sex sells. It's basically, that's what it is. They're going to want me to dress provocatively. They're going to want me to have sex scenes. They're going to want me to do all these things that I don't want to do. You know, and even when you go to, like, when I went to acting classes, you know, I tried to go back even a little bit later thinking maybe it'll be different. And as an adult, maybe I'll have, you know, more authority over what I want to do. But I remember being in acting school, and I remember watching my acting teacher make a 16-year-old smoke a cigarette in class. You know, she was trying to fake it, and he's like, no. He lights the cigarette and puts it in her mouth. He's like, no. You think when you go on an audition that you're going to be, and that they want you to smoke, you think that you're going to be able to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't smoke. And then, you know, another time he's this like 40-year-old man, and he's like got this 16-year-old, 17-year-old girl, or, you know, even like one of the 18-year-old girls, because I think he knew that he shouldn't do that with a 16-year-old, but he had an 18-year-old girl, and he started touching her, and, you know, touching all different areas in the middle of this scene. And she's like, you know, I feel really uncomfortable with this. And he was like, so? You're going to say you're uncomfortable with that when they want you to do that in the film, or when they want you to do that in the movie that you got the part for? So many people, they get a show, and they read the sides, and they say, oh, you know, okay, this is good, but the next thing you know, you go in, and they're like, they change everything on you, and they're like, now, no, we want you to, like, you know, kiss this person, and we want that person to grab you, you know, right here, and they want this, that, and the other, and they want to see some sex action there. And then all of a sudden you're going to say no after you already signed a contract and you already committed yourself to do that part? And then that's the way Hollywood controls you. That's the way Hollywood lies and gets people sucked in, because all of a sudden now they're on a contract, they'll get sued and they don't have anything anyways, and then they're going to be blackballed and thrown out of the industry, and they'll never work again over one little thing. So that's how I got out of the industry, and that's how I decided this is not for me. You know, I mean, there's so many things that I want to do, and I do love, you know, acting, but acting in Hollywood and acting in that industry, it's something where you can't pick and choose what you want to do, and you're controlled. You know, you're told you can't cut your hair, or you can't grow your hair, or you have to keep this certain hair color, or you have to keep this certain look, you have to dress this certain way. And if that's not what you want, I mean, you know, you think all this like, oh, like I'm gonna be this famous person, you know, and then next thing you know, like, you know, I mean, I did have some friends that did become famous, and, you know, that did actually make it in Hollywood, but I look at them over the years and I'm just like, what happened to them? You know, like all of a sudden they feel like they're gone. They're not them anymore. They're not the person I met. You know, and they've been controlled and manipulated in Hollywood for so many years. And it's sad to see that the enemy uses Hollywood, and like it's like they take them and they use them and use them and use them and make the money that they can, and they just throw them away. You know, and they're struggling. Half of them are like suicidal, and they're turning to drugs and alcohol because they've lost their own identity and who they are. They no longer have control over their own lives and their own selves. So, you know, that's why I got out of the entertainment business. It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's not all like fame and glory. So, you know, if you are interested in, you know, getting into show business or getting into the entertainment industry, you know, just know, like, it's like your creative talents might be taken away, because even when I was doing guitar, like, I mean, I was like playing at bars and playing at like, you know, these like, you know, concert type things, and I wasn't playing the music I wanted to play. I wasn't able to write my own music. I wasn't able to do things that I wanted to do. It was what someone else wanted me to do and how they wanted me to play. You know, I was like playing in Mexican bars and, you know, and these like concerts in the park where I didn't even understand the music I was playing. So, and then I had like a bunch of, you know, older men like, you know, pawing at me at like 11, 12, 13 years old. So it's not a good industry to go into, especially if you're trying to serve the Lord, you know, and there's so many scams out there. There's so many things. There's so many other things that I could talk about. You know, we've all heard about the casting couch, and a lot of the women that, you know, they had, you know, to sleep with producers and directors to get certain parts and to make it into an industry. And it's just like they're selling their souls. There's some that are selling their souls literally for the fame and the money, and it's just like they're stuck in it. So that's why I got out. That's my story. And if you are looking to get into the entertainment industry at all, just be very careful and just really pray about it and ask if that's really, really, really what God wants you to do. God bless.